bringing this show to you, and we'll do these shows kind of randomly for a while until we build enough content really to have a good warehouse of content. So this is kind of a rando show. We will be also doing shows where we do this every week, and so we'll have guests on those shows. So on Chip Talks on a weekly basis, we'll have different guests, which will be a lot of fun. But I want to be able to do these quick shows to talk about things that come up, to talk about news items, stuff that happens, questions that we get asked. So someone asked in this group, in the Chip Talks group, if we would talk about basically immune response in the tummy, I think macrophages, like that, and kind of how those get out of control. Whatever that question was, so probably butchering it, we will get to that, and we'll certainly try to answer your questions as they come up. So if you have questions about a health condition or questions about anything really concerning your health, let's not get into controversial things, but concerning your health, although this will be somewhat controversial, it just depends on your perspective. But let's try to address health issues. So again, if you've got something odd going on, that's the world that we live in. If you know much about what we do here, within our series of companies, so New Pharma is that company, and that's kind of where we hold our knowledge, let's say. And then we use that knowledge, and we have a formulary that we build through TrueMedix. And so, if you want to use one of our products, go to our TrueMedix website. That's the best way. Purpose of this show really is to educate and inform you, though. I'll always, talk about ways that you can get our stuff. And again, everything that I'm going to educate you about is in our formulary, is in kind of our wheelhouse, so to speak. I'm going to do my best to not incur the wrath of any federal agencies as we talk through everything here. But all I'm doing really is giving you information. So I'm going to talk a lot about human function. I'm going to talk a lot about the human body. I'm going to talk a lot about how you work. I'm going to talk about that in ways that you've never heard talked about before. But it's truth. And again, you can validate anything that I have to say because everything that I have to say comes from a reference. So what am I doing? I'm taking a lot of different little bits and pieces of information, and I'm putting them together in a bigger picture of human function than perhaps you've ever been taught before. Now, I don't think this is new by any means. I don't think that I'm, the smartest guy in the world and I'm able to do this. I think this is a model that's been built in the past and has been scattered to the four winds. So I'm just picking up the pieces of a model that we've known about. So everything I'm going to tell you about, I think we've known about in the past. Maybe not in this generation, but we certainly have. So, we're just on a journey of let's say, rediscovering ancient knowledge, which is kind of cool. All right, so let's get into, and today I really want to talk about a couple of things. So I want to reiterate an issue that's happening with CBDs around the country, so we'll talk through that one. And then I also want to talk a little bit about some news that came out. So I don't know if these two things, kind of may or may not go together, but I want you to be aware of some things. And I want to, address, I guess, this study that came out on vitamins. So we'll talk that through. And then we're going to talk through, always a little bit of information and education. So we're going to talk a little bit about seizures because I happen to have, and you guys know who you are, but I've got two families, right now that we're working with some kiddos who are having seizures. And so, we're trying to address those in ways that are natural, and allow your body really to address those issues. But you have to have some knowledge in order to do that. And again, you have to kind of understand inputs and how your body works. So we'll talk about that a little bit too. Again, if you're out there and you have an issue with seizures, this is going to be super duper good information. If you have, kiddos in crisis, again, that's what we do every day. So we're here to help. And we have structures, that we can kind of pull you in and help you through. You can go to New Pharma and check that out as always. Okay, I'm going to show you some cool things because we've got like all this cool studio stuff set up. I've got to kind of drive it from here, but we'll end up having guests, right? So we're going to end up having guests in the studio. We'll have different chairs and stuff set up. You may have me in here smoking, you may have me in here drinking my coffee, whatever it is, but we can have this little camera angle, which is kind of nice. We can always have just a background. So a lot of you will be listening to this only, so you won't see the video. So what I'm showing you now is just a background. There's no happy smiling chip on there. There's me. Hi guys. We got that look. And then this last look I'll show you is, kind of my way to show you some information. Again, I'm going to talk you through this information. Nobody wants to look at a bunch of slides, but it honestly, it helps me remember my place as well. So I'll get better. These will get better. I'll probably get better at presenting them over time. But I want to walk you guys through a couple of things here on really these points about the FDA. So the first thing that I really want to talk to you about is not that one. I really want to talk to you about Pfizer. So just some history real quick. And again, if you're in the CBD business, this is certainly going to apply to you. If you're not in the CBD business, again, if you've used CBDs for your health, so if you've used CBDs during COVID to boost your immune, if you've used CBDs for a variety of things that they're used for, then the power, of CBD, just CBD, cannabidiol, or everything, let's say, not THC and cannabis, because that's a more broad range. So you recall that it was during the Trump administration, it was late 2018, you had Congress pass a bill called the Farm Bill 2018, and you had Trump sign the Farm Bill 2018. It was actually a big omnibus, but Farm Bill was part of all that. So what it said was that, hemp, we're going to allow you to grow hemp, guys. So we're going to, kind of lift the federal restrictions on hemp. We're going to allow it to be grown in states, and we're going to allow it to be shipped around the country. Well, that got everybody pretty excited. And they also said, we're going to have states regulate the hemp industry, and we're going to have them do that at their ag department. Okay? So, great. All right. Everybody got excited. You had Coke, you had Pepsi, you had a lot of big companies, ready to roll out tinctures, beverages, and gummies into Walgreens, CVS, and a lot of other places. Well, you had the head of the FDA come out within a month. Now, the head of the FDA could have come out and said, guys, it's great this happened. Hemp, we have 10,000, 12,000 years of data on. It's more generally regarded as safe than anything on the planet. There's more study on it than turmeric or, any of these herbs that we consider generally regarded as safe, and we're going to categorize it as generally regarded as safe. So, first of all, they could have done that, but they didn't. What they did was they came out and they said, CBD is a drug. In fact, it's an unapproved drug because no one has spent millions and millions of dollars with us to approve it. Now, you don't know this. Most people don't know this, but if Pfizer wants to get a drug approved, who pays for that? You don't. Pfizer does. If I want to get a drug approved, I have to pay for that. Who benefits? The FDA benefits. Okay. So again, they're going to say, oh, well, gosh, whoa, a new thing. Yet you're not going to let that out of the bag until it's been through our structure and we're going to make our money on it. So you had industry push back on that. You had a lot of big industry push back on that and say, whoa, that's not right. You had the Trump administration starting to address this. And so by May of 2018, you had the FDA conducting public hearings. So they came out and they said, gosh, we want to hear what you guys think. We're going to have these open hearings. And some of you participated in those hearings. We certainly did a written letter to the FDA and put in our input. And most of that input was, gosh, we're finding that CBDs are extremely safe. However, the problems are really testing, right? So who's testing them? States don't really require CBD testing. Perhaps they should. We need to, protect consumer safety. So that was the main kind of output of those meetings. Anyway, everybody expected, that the FDA would regulate CBDs at the end of the Trump administration. Certainly would have happened in Trump's second term, but Trump didn't get reelected. But again, there's a lot of information there. But for whatever reason, Trump didn't get reelected, and so you had the Biden administration punt on CBDs under the FDA. Right in late, well, let's look, because there's a date on here. So December 20th, 2021, you have Pfizer show up and buy the only company. Now, again, what has the FDA said? Nuance is important. Words are important here. Unapproved drug. They said CBD is an unapproved drug. Well, are there any companies out there that have taken a CBD-like molecule and gotten development approval? Yeah, a company called Arena Pharmaceutical. They have one molecule, one molecule. That's a CBD ripoff, let's say, molecule. Well, Pfizer just paid $7 billion for Arena Pharmaceutical in December of last year. $7 billion. So Pfizer's making a $7 billion bet on CBD on cannabis. That's basically what they're saying. They didn't buy Arena for their labs. Pfizer's got a bunch of labs. They didn't buy Arena for their smart scientists. Pfizer has a bunch of smart scientists. They didn't buy them for their business people. Pfizer has a bunch of smart business people. They bought them for their intellectual property, which was one CBD drug, which now, by the way, the former head of the FDA is now making this decision, a gentleman by the name of Gottlieb. So, all right, so now you know the landscape. Guess what the FDA is now doing? Are they helping the CBD business? Are they protecting you as a consumer of CBDs? No, they're shutting down the CBD business, okay? So the next thing that I'm showing you here is just the FDA's website, talking about that they're shutting down the CBD business. And what they're doing is they're calling CBD an unapproved drug. Let me tell you the conundrum that this puts. Let's say we've got Acme CBD manufacturing, okay? And Acme CBD manufacturing, they've just put millions of dollars into their state-of-the-art manufacturing facility. It is clean. It's beautiful. They've got HIPAA filters in there. They've got everything that you want. And they have quality assurance. They've got a QA officer. They've got very experienced food staff, dietary supplement staff in there. And they wear a big white hat because they've registered with the FDA as a dietary supplements or food manufacturer or pet manufacturer. So those are the three they're cracking down on, by the way. But Acme is happy. Acme is proud of what they're doing. In fact, Acme welcomes the FDA to come visit them because they want to show them what a wonderful, safe job that they're doing and how they're really protecting consumer safety. They want a big attaboy from the FDA. They can't wait till the FDA shows up. Well, the FDA shows up. Knock, knock, knock. Hi, Acme. We're the FDA. Acme, are you putting CBDs in your products? Why, yes, we are, FDA. Let us show you our wonderful, clean facility, how we spent millions of dollars on doing what we're doing. We're doing it all really good, really safe. We're testing everything. We're testing all the inputs, all the outputs. We're doing everything that we need to do. In fact, we're going above and beyond. The FDA is going, that's great. You're a dietary supplements manufacturer, right? Yeah, we're registered as dietary supplements, food and pets. So we've got all those proper, things here, and we adhere to 21 CFR 111 and 117 and whatever the pet one is. It doesn't really matter. And the FDA will go, okay, well, you realize CBD is an unapproved drug. No. Tell me about that. Let's have an argument about that. Well, to the FDA, it's an unapproved drug. So again, good luck with that one, because no one has paid the money that would benefit the FDA to take CBDs up, except Arena Pharmaceutical. Okay? So now you're seeing the game, aren't you? So the FDA says, yeah, you're putting an unapproved drug in a dietary supplement or a food or a pet product. So what they're saying to Acme is, we don't care how much money you've spent. We don't care how good you're doing it. You're putting Xanax in the water. You're putting Xanax in the food. Do you want to continue to do that? Go right ahead if you want, but we're going to issue you a warning letter. So a warning letter is about the most severe thing that the FDA can do. When you get a warning letter and you want to stay in business, you darn sure better address what the FDA warned you about, and they come back to make sure that you've addressed it. When you get a warning letter that you're putting an unapproved drug into dietary supplements, you best stop right now. Because what they're telling you is that you are incurring a whole lot of liability. So again, it's not the FDA directly shutting down the CBD industry. What they're doing is issuing warning letters. Acme can continue to stay in business, but Acme is at great risk of being sued, of all kinds of liability. So anyway, that's what's going on in the CBD industry. Now, again, you guys, we need to know this. We certainly need to push back on this in any way that we can if you want to continue to have your CBDs and not have to, buy them through insurance at 10 times the cost through Pfizer. And Lord only knows, how they're going to alter or manipulate that drug. They can't do too much manipulation because it is a drug, but it doesn't make me real comfortable. I'm sure it doesn't make you guys real comfortable either. So that's bad news. Now, the good news is there is, ways for these companies to stay in business. So like we make CBDs in one company, and we'll continue to make CBDs, but we will do that in another company under a different regulatory. And that's probably the way that most people will go. But this is a big problem, right? So if a lot of the power that I can kind of help you with, I'm going to suggest CBDs as an adder to whatever kinds of herbs and spices that I'm going to recommend to you, because they help, and they really, they help this system. They help your endocannabinoid system. It's your master regulatory system. It's involved with all of your major processes. CBD helps with bacterial control. It helps in so many ways. And so to eliminate it, you're actually putting us, the FDA, by doing this, is honest to God putting the public, let's say, at more risk from viruses and infections and things like that than we are now. So again, they're creating a risk by removing this health improving product, is what I'm trying to say. I didn't say that very elegantly. Chip talks, but sometimes Chip doesn't talk very well. But I try. Again, hopefully just listen to the information. I'll try to get better with all my little pause words, my ums and you-knows. They irritate me probably more than they do you guys, but I'll try to get rid of them. Okay, so this is the study on vitamins. And you might have heard about this. This was a pretty big study, or a pretty big news this week, where we were talking about really vitamins and how, are vitamins worth the money? Do vitamins help? Well, let me give you some information about vitamins, first of all. And I think this is super important. Now, again, I've got to give you some background on kind of the lines here. So what is pharma, and kind of how does pharma differentiate from vitamins, and then how do vitamins differentiate, let's say, from dietary supplements, and kind of what are all of those things? This is important because you'll begin to see kind of what the FDA is doing here, potentially, and prepping you for. So we all like our vitamins. I mean, we know how important vitamin D is, for instance, we're all lacking in vitamin D for other reasons, but we're all lacking in vitamin D. So that's a pretty big, major thing. But first of all, so you have pharma, and again, what is pharma? Well, if I have something that I want to help you with, I kind of can help you in one of, let's say, 3 categories. So if it's a natural product, I can help you over here in dietary supplements. So that's what we do. So like turmeric or sage, I can help you with that over here, but I can't say anything about it. Like I can't say this sage will help you with inflammation, although it will. But I can't say that, right? So that's pounds, that's against the law. The Federal Trade Commission will come down on me and say, you're making claims. So why is that? Well, you can only make claims over here. When you've taken your sage to the FDA and you've said, hey, I think I've got something that might be rising to the level of a drug. It seems to be affecting the human body. And the FDA will say, okay, well, it's going to cost you a whole lot of money that we're going to benefit from. So pay us that money and then go through your clinical trials. Oh, and by the way, you do all the work. We're just here to check the boxes and validate for you. So you take your sage up the drug development path, and $50 million later, now you've got a sage drug. If you haven't protected that with intellectual property, everyone in the world can now benefit from what you've done. Oh, we'll benefit from Chip's sage drug. If you have intellectual property, you can protect it, okay? Now you can come out and say, oh, I have this sage drug, and it helps with inflammation because we put it through clinical trials and we proved that. It's pretty stupid, right? It's pretty ridiculous, these lines. But that's how pharma is protected. How come nature can't threaten pharma? Well, again, you have to go through the FDA's drug development path, right? Does nature work as good as pharma? Yeah, better. There's nothing in what I've just told you that said that this is better than that. It's just a hump you got to get over, or a line you got to cross before I can say my sage is anti-inflammatory. It's a $50 million line, which is a pretty big line that most people can't cross. There's a middle category called vitamins, called over the counter. And you can say some things about vitamins that you can't say over here, but you certainly can't say all the stuff over here. Gosh, it'd be just great if you just eliminated the middle category, wouldn't it? If you're over here in the FDA, or in pharma, it absolutely is great. So again, it's fun to diss on vitamins, isn't it? For those reasons. But let me kind of give you some information about vitamins. And this is just logic. There's no really science here. But we all know that if we well, I guess there is science because we talk about absorption. But we all know that if we take, let's say, that vitamin C tablet, that we're going to take that tablet and we're going to absorb half of that, right? So you always, have the interesting colored and smelling urine after you take vitamin C because it's not all staying in you and you're eliminating a lot of it. So that's a problem. So you only get 50% basically of what you take in a vitamin C tablet. Question for you guys. If you eat an orange, how much of the vitamin C in that orange do you absorb? All of it. All of it. All of it. So, why take a vitamin when you can eat an orange, right? That's kind of my way of thinking about it. You can go to nature, you can find things that contain vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin B, vitamin C, all of the vitamins. So if the FDA comes out and wipes out our vitamins, at least know that you can go to nature and always find those things. It's almost like the vitamin industry is sort of put there to make nature not work as good as it does by itself, and just the orange is the example. But anyway, I wanted to point to that because I think that it's important, to just realize that these things are going on for a variety of reasons. And honestly, things like COVID are a big one. Okay, so I want to clear a concept with you guys. I'm gonna tie all this together because, and I'm saying and I know that's annoying, but I'm pausing because I want to go to the next subject. So I've had 2 kiddos in the last 2 weeks that we have talked to their families and that we're trying to help them. They're both having seizures. So both of these kids are around 2 years old, and they both have pretty severe seizure issues going on, really for 2 different reasons. One's trauma related, and the other, well, they're both kind of trauma related, but encephalitis and invasion, let's say. So they're interesting, cases, let's say. And the thing that I know about how you work and the thing that I know about seizures is that generally they're caused by overstimulation, over electric stimulation of something called voltage gated sodium channels. So the endocannabinoid system is involved in regulating voltage gated sodium channels, absolutely. And again, there's finer things that you can regulate these channels through. But I want to take you on a little bit of a journey because again, I'm always going to refer back to podcast number one. Sorry, but I told you in podcast number one I was going to do it. But in podcast number one, we talk about a concept called fasting and fed. Okay, so we do not want to be in fed very long. We want to be in fasting because our body is far more efficient. And what happens in fasting, again, a bunch of stuff happens down here, but if you sort of ratchet it up, what happens at the highest level is that there's a cellular switch that gets thrown called AMPK. And this is phosphorus additions. I can't say the phosphorylation word. I'll mess it all up. I guess I just said it. But anyway, we're adding phosphorus to molecules through this process. So it sounds benign, but it's a very important thing. It's literally when you're not doing this, you're in fed. When you are doing this, you're in fasting. And we all want to be in fasting. Well, what I want to show you guys, and again, this applies if you know people who have seizures, anything. But I want to show you ionically. So basically, again, these seizures happen because of overstimulation of these voltage-gated sodium channels. So on my screen here, and I'm sorry if you're just listening, but what I've got is basically these ion channels inside of your body, and what AMPK does to them. Now, there's none of them. There's only one, let's say, that it increases, right? So if we want to help seizures, we need to cut down on the electricity and kind of cut down on the electric expression. And my point here is that when you go into fasting, your body does that. So when you have active AMPK, it actually reduces the amplitude in all of these ion channels. So you kind of become less electric and you're more actually fat burning. And that makes sense because you're kind of these two different things. And I want to close this little deal with this thought. So your mitochondria will run on 3 different fuel substrates. So a water substrate, and that's plant in the dark mode. That is fed mode, and that is where most of us are most of the time because we're in that environment. We're creating that environment for ourselves. Now, when we come out of let's say, the dark closet like a plant and go into the light and get the proper nutrients, our mitochondria literally flip. So that's a different mitochondrial state, and our fuel that we're running on is a fat-based fuel called dietary fats, saturated fat in particular, but stuff that you can stick on a triglyceride. 50 times more efficient in that middle mode. So we're a plant in the sunshine. And then you have a third substrate called light, that, again, if you're a plant, you're going to photosynthesize, and that is the most efficient way that a mitochondria can run. Do you photosynthesize? Yes, we'll talk about that later. Most people aren't quite there yet. We got a lot of groundwork to go over before we get there. So anyway, super duper inefficient, more efficient, most efficient is the things to remember. Now, your two things really in this let's say in your body. So you kind of have a water-based side, and you kind of have a more solid-based side that's fat-based. So it's collagen-based, cells are made of collagen, but it's fat-based. And you can't move ions through fat, which is kind of a good thing. But again, your most efficient state here is a fat state, not a water state where you are moving around a lot of ions. Okay? So hopefully that kind of makes sense, because over here it's easy to overstimulate you. It's kind of the emergency backup, mode that we run in. Every cell will run on glucose. Every single cell will run on glucose. So again, that's over here. It may not be most efficient for the organ or the organism to run on glucose. It's not efficient for you to run on glucose. You need to be running on dietary fats. That's the point of all this. But when we are running on dietary fats, and again, this is the big point, is we go from a plant in the dark with no water to a plant in the light with lots of nutrients. And we all understand that a plant in the dark with no water is super subject to disease. It's going to get sick easy. It's going to, it's not going to be the highest expression of itself. If you drag that plant out into the sun and you give it water and nutrients, guess what? It's going to flip around, and it is going to become the highest expression of itself. It's able to defend itself, bugs, pests, bacteria, all that kind of stuff. So we're living in a dark closet right now. Again, we have knowledge. That's the knowledge that I have. That's the knowledge that I want to give you to move you from that dark college in dark college college from that dark closet into the sunlight. Okay, this last little concept here is we all, have a battery, right? So, and we all understand the concept of a battery, but perhaps not in the way that I'm going to explain it to you, because you're just a big battery. So we understand that a battery has ultimate potential just by itself. I could put that battery in a closet, it might degrade a little bit, but I could come back in 10 years and, that battery would probably still be good. That battery only begins to degrade when it's having a chemical process where it's producing electricity. And when that what causes that to happen is when you complete the circuit on the battery. So if you take a battery and put it in a flashlight and you turn that flashlight on, you're completing the circuit in the battery. Well, what happens is when you do that, you start chemical reactions inside of the battery that produce electricity. But those chemical reactions won't happen until you complete that circuit, until you turn on the flashlight, right? So we are a big battery. We certainly have a water side of us that's very ionic. Again, how you translate thought into muscle action through voltage-gated sodium channels is part of that water-based kind of ionic system. It actually goes from fat to ionic in that. If your battery is not properly, let's say, grounded, or your circuit isn't properly completed, those reactions won't happen in the same way that they should. So there's ways that we can help with that, like with herbal supplementation, so there are things that will help with all that. But certainly we need to be aware that we look at your feet sometime and look at the amount of rubber associated with your shoes. If you can't ground yourself, you can't complete your circuit, and you can't kind of complete the chemical reactions that you need to on the water side of your body. So that's the main point. Okay, so I think that's a pretty good place to leave it for right now. So hopefully you guys enjoy these. Again, we'll be doing a lot of these quickies. The bigger ones, we've got some great guests coming up. So we're going to talk about breast implant toxicology. I think that's a huge subject. If you are a woman who has breast implants, this is something that I would absolutely stay tuned for. We're going to talk a lot about things that happen to these women, kind of the conditions that happen to them, the conditions they find themselves in. And then after they have these breasts removed or breast implants removed, how they come back around. We're going to talk about why that happens too, which I think is pretty fascinating. And it just goes to this bigger model and kind of bigger pieces of information about what we have. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show today. I thank you. We will be back very soon. We'll be back certainly next Friday, if not before. See ya. Look for